welcome to episode 36 of What to Think, the technology podcast from VentureBeat.com. I'm Mark Sullivan, and I'm here with VentureBeat news editor Harrison Weber.
Hey.
And today we're going to be talking to you from the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, Nevada. And our guest today will be Ford Motor Company CEO Mark Fields, and we'll be talking to him about his company's in-car infotainment systems, the new Sync 3 system that they're debuting here, as well as about how the internet is changing driving and about how Ford's position on fully automated cars is evolving. But first of all, some tech news highlights from the Consumer Electronics Show. And these are some of the biggest themes that we're seeing here in Las Vegas so far. First of all, Samsung had a big day. Yesterday. It had both a big press conference with perhaps 1,000 media people there, and then a big keynote. And they announced everything from a large 88-inch HD TV and washing machines and music systems and a whole bunch of stuff.
Frankly, the first event was a bit boring, but then the opening keynote for the Consumer Electronics Show, the CEO made an interesting promise. He didn't actually announce much at all, except for that he said in the next 5 years, or in 5 years rather, every single one of Samsung's products will be an Internet of Things device. And so, for those that don't know, the Internet of Things is this concept that, every little gadget, device, appliance connects together, and, hopefully we get something good out of that interconnectivity. That's an interesting promise. And I think what makes it interesting is that Samsung makes a lot of varying levels of high-end, low-end devices. And so to pledge that every device, even the cheap TVs, even the cheap speakers or what have you, that's just a big commitment to make. And so Samsung has said they're going to give out $100 million to developers who are making Internet of Things applications. And they also announced some updates to the Smart Things company that they bought.
And that's another example. I mean, the Smart Things products and people are what makes me think that this is more than just talk about the Internet of Things. I mean, I think Samsung intends to make a big part of their products integrate with the connected home and the Smart Things products in the connected home. And they've already started doing this. So I think they're doing some interesting things, and it's going to get more interesting, especially as we see bigger integration between smartwatches and smartphones with the home stuff and the Smart Things stuff. Harrison, we're also seeing a lot of wearables here at CES.
They're just everywhere.
Yeah.
You just can't avoid them. There's rings. Everyone has like a Fitbit style device. There's some watches. The coolest stuff to me is actually the fashion centric stuff. I don't know why. It seems like the Internet of Things. It's like it feels so close. We're all here. We're talking about, or at least we're claiming we're talking about, innovations. Your companies are claiming that, but we're talking about the future. And so it's easy to get excited about Internet of Things. It's easy to get excited about wearables, but do you want something strapped to your wrist that doesn't look good? And the answer for most people is that they probably don't want anything geeky or clunky or awkward strapped to their wrists. I'm excited about some of the companies kind of exploring that market. I think VentureBeat is one of the companies doing that.
And what are they doing?
They've got kind of the bracelet wearable thing. A few companies are doing that play. Uh-huh. It looks pretty good. It doesn't look like it's freaking Android Wear, which they're just not there yet.
I think you're dead on. I think wearables is still a young market, and a young technology. Really, it's a big market. I think people here are sort of rushing to get a product out into this market that they think is going to be fairly rich this year. But I mean, it's typical of this industry to focus on the technology, But with wearables, we're asking people to wear something on their wrist, on their body, and it's, where I think companies are just now starting to integrate some of these fashion and wearability things with their products, and until they do that, the technology doesn't mean squat. The technology will end up in a drawer, if it's not wearable, if it doesn't look good.
Simplicity is big here too. I mean, just like every interface, Internet of Things and wearables and auto tech, it needs to work. It needs to do the things that it's supposed to do well, and that's one of the things that's plagued wearables. One thing that maybe Apple will fix is that, should you be able to text on your watch? Why would you want to do that? And so that's one of the reasons why I do like some of the simple, fashionable wearables, because they're, at least they try to do that one thing. That's what Fitbit kind of got right early on. It's they do that, they do health. That's it. They do a pretty good job.
Yeah. We're also seeing an awful lot of auto tech stuff here, as we're going to be talking later to Mark Fields about. But, we're not really hearing as much about infotainment systems in the cars as we are about autonomous driving. Mercedes made an announcement about autonomous driving. Audi is making some announcements about that. And it does seem like there's an awful lot of this stuff, more so this year. I think they said 10 major automakers are here at the show. And it just seems like a big deal.
The definite upside to this, aside from the fact that, self-driving cars are cool, is I don't want to hear the word infotainment ever again. It's an old term. It's computer-aided reporting. It's no one wants infotainment. They want to listen to music. They want, navigation, whatever. I don't care. But infotainment is just painful. Now, autonomous, I don't mind that word at all. And I don't think anyone will mind being able to text while driving and not risk killing someone. And so I think we're all excited about this. There's been a bunch of throwback references to the 80s, to that Back to the Future vision, cars that drive themselves, that kind of old vision of the future that kind of feels close. Everyone's making predictions. The CEO of Ford has made a prediction that we'll start seeing cars in the market that are autonomous in 5 years. But then everyone stops short about that, saying who will do it, except for maybe Tesla. It feels so close and yet so far away.
Right. So we've just touched on the major themes here. To get all the news, and we've published a lot of content about the CES show already. To see all of that, please go to VentureBeat.com, and there's a special tab for our CES coverage. Now we're going to get to a short message from our sponsor, and the podcast is sponsored by New Relic, a software analytics company that makes sense of billions of data points about millions of applications in real time. New Relic's comprehensive SaaS-based software analytics platform that empowers developers, IT, and business leaders to transform their business, all by using real-time data directly from production software. New Relic helps the people who build modern software understand the stories their data is trying to tell them about app performance and their entire business. And now we'll go to the guest segment of our show. We're here with Mark Fields and Raj Nair. Mark is the CEO of Ford Motor Company, and Raj is the CTO. A little bit about Mark. Mark has been the President and Chief Executive Officer of Ford Motor Company since July 1st of this year. He's led the development, manufacturing, marketing, and sales of Ford and Lincoln vehicles in the United States, Canada, Mexico, and South America, and was responsible for the transformation of the company's North America operations and record profitability. Mark has for a long time led Ford's efforts to bring internet information and entertainment into Ford vehicles. And Raj, you've been CTO for how long at Ford?
I've been head of product development for 3 years now.
Head of product development,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
And that's included in the title, so we include all the products and designers and researchers all under our technology and innovation banner.
Okay, fantastic. Glad you're here with us.
He's got most of the budget. That's the way to look at it.
That's what counts. At dinner last night, you mentioned that your involvement with CES goes quite a ways back. Back in 2007, Ford was really the first automotive company to be here.
Yeah.
Back then, you were introducing Sync, and this time you're introducing Sync 3. And I wonder if you guys could just talk to us a little bit about sort of the evolution of the product, and maybe talk a little bit about the evolution of the industry during all those 7 years.
Well, I'll take maybe the evolution of the industry, and Raj can take us through our thoughts around originally Sync and Sync 3. It's been really interesting to see since 2007. We were the first OEM to be here at CES. And the reason we wanted to come to CES is because we obviously wanted to learn, but we also wanted to be viewed as part of the community, not just some transactional partner that comes in, buys a piece of technology, and just plugs it into the vehicle, and hopefully it works. So we've been coming here for 8 years in a row now, and it's been unbelievable to see the growth of the automotive industry as part of CES. And it's part of our whole strategy of our three priorities around accelerating our One Ford plan of product excellence delivered with passion, and around driving innovation in every part of our business. So for us, coming to the show is a great way to highlight a number of our innovations, which we did this week. We also talked a lot about not only the semi-autonomous vehicles that we have on the road today, but Raj talked about some of the fully autonomous vehicles that we have in development. But also, innovation for us as a company has always been with a higher purpose. It goes back to our founder. So we're really using this show this year to talk about the traditional things, if I could call it that, but also talk about the higher purpose of using innovation to really solve some of the pressing social issues going forward around traffic and congestion around the world. And how do we view that as a business opportunity as well as making a better world? So it's been really interesting to see the evolution of not only our participation here, but to see everybody follow on. And in terms of the sync, Raj, you might want to spend some time.
Yeah, sure. I think the evolution of sync is not too different from what we see as the evolution of consumers' desires here at CES, relative to their smartphones. When we started with sync, it was really about maintaining connectivity in that vehicle environment and seamless connectivity with your whatever your mobile device was, both in terms of phone as well as whatever media you may have on it. And what we've seen, you have to remember, we actually announced sync before the iPhone was introduced.
Yeah.
And so what we've seen now is a change in the human-machine interface for connectivity, a change in applications on your phone that people now want to use. And so we've learned a lot from 10 million sync-equipped vehicles on the road and the feedback from all those customers that human-machine interface, not just the features, but how you interface with it is really important. So we've spent a lot of time simplifying the menus in Sync 3, making it far more intuitive to use. Things that you're very familiar with on your smartphone or tablet, like swiping to another screen or pinch and zoom, are now enabled with Sync 3. Being very easily able to access apps that you may have on your smartphone and enabling them in the right way for the driving environment. So it's been a great opportunity to use all that knowledge we accumulated by having so many sync-equipped vehicles and updating to this next generation system.
Yeah, very good. So, for a long time, it seemed like a lot of people were talking about this idea of bringing the smartphone into the car and having the smartphone integrate with the head-end system. Do you feel like the role of the smartphone in all of this has evolved over the years? Is it more about the technology that lives in the dash now, or it's connected to the cloud?
I think the capability of the smartphone and the capability of the cloud has certainly increased significantly. But for the customer, I think they're looking for a seamless experience. They really don't care whether the feature is embedded or in their phone, in their cloud. They want that really to be in the background. And for them, the other thing Sync 3 can do is give them the opportunity to select which application on the phone or embedded in the vehicle do they want to use for navigation, for example. And so as seamless as we can make that, as frictionless as we can make that, I think that's going to be the best way to satisfy the customer.
Now, Mark, I want to switch over to something that we talked quite a bit about last night. You actually got a little press today for saying that you expect to see the first fully autonomous car on the road, at least for sale, in the next 5 years. What does that mean for Ford? I mean, you talked about these sort of higher ideals and dealing with congestion and air quality. How does the autonomous car connect with those ideals for you?
Well, for us as a company, as we're thinking as a mobility company, autonomous vehicles is right in there connected with car sharing, ride sharing, connected car, all the things that we talked about this morning, mobility in general. And as a company, as we're stepping at what it means for us is, first off, when you look in the next 5 years, I believe there will be a fully autonomous vehicle. As we talked about, it'll probably be as we talked about, maybe a defined area that's been mapped completely, a geofenced area. But when you look at the technology around cameras, when you look at the technology around sensors, when you look at how the technology and the expertise is changing around software and the algorithms that drive that, it's very fast right now, very fast. Clearly, you got regulatory issues that will always kind of trail that, may slow that up a bit. But nonetheless, I think it's going to be there. Now, for us as a company, what it means for us is, as we said, we don't want to be in a race for, here's the first autonomous vehicle. or here's a marketing claim because we want to make an announcement. For us as a company to solve some of these issues, it really comes down to, are we making things affordable and accessible to people versus just a small segment of the population that can access these things? It goes back to our founder. It goes back to when we introduced Sync originally. We were thinking originally around taking things for granted and saying, well, it's a technology feature. Let's put it on the Lincolns first, and we'll let it propagate down to the Ford
You guys had
vehicles.
kind of a debate about that,
We
right?
did, and then we turned it on its head, and we said, listen, when you look at the customers that are going to be open to these type of things and more natural for them, we said, we're going to introduce it on Ford first. We're going to introduce it on Explorer and Focuses and things of that nature. So with autonomous vehicles, we'll be there, but we want to make it true to our brand, which is affordable and accessible. And if we can do that, that will help a lot in enabling a number of the traffic and congestion issues that we talked about this morning.
So we're kind of in a position where, and this sounds like a very smart position, to sort of wait perhaps till some of these cultural and regulatory issues start to work out. But then there's also this issue of giving the whole thing a little bit of time to where this autonomous technology maybe has time to maybe reach a little bit lower price point to get them in some of these mid-level cars, what have you.
Exactly.
You're really going to see a dual path. The path towards full autonomy in that area and environment that we're talking about. But many of the building blocks that we're talking about, whether they be the sensors or even the algorithms or the use of deep neural nets, to develop the algorithms, are applicable for what we call semi-autonomous features and driver assist features. And whether it's like the features that we have in our dealers right now, the Focus's ability to park in a parallel park or perpendicular park and steer itself, adaptive cruise control, coming down to a full stop, lane keep assist, keeping you within lane. All of those are the building blocks towards full autonomy. And so they're going to be a big factor in also reducing the cost, both of the hardware and development of the software, in support of the full autonomy solution that Mark's referring to.
Raj, one of the things that we spoke about last night was the importance of mapping in this. We're talking about roping off a city, a metropolitan area. Right now the autonomous driving sensors rely on the lines on the road. So can you talk to me a little bit about what it's going to take to get to this point in the mapping where maybe autonomous cars are going to be possible?
Yeah, I think that the 3D mapping, extremely detailed, high 3D mapping, so the vehicle really understands its environment and understands its environment relative to where it thinks it is and what's going to be beyond its sensor range will be key to levels of full autonomy. Also, real-time aspects of those same sensors, picking up the non-static portions of its environment, pedestrians, bicycles, the other vehicles around it. All of that processing power required to do that is pretty significant. And so the more you can rely on an existing 3D map or a map that's actually being generated by the other vehicles in that same environment and continuously updated and have that feed in as a given to the vehicle, the more you're going to enable the vehicle to make the right decisions in those type of environments. Not that certain aspects of autonomous capability won't be possible outside of those areas, but the hurdle for full autonomy is pretty high. And so we do see that as at least in the medium-term time frame that Mark was referring to, one of the constraints for full autonomy, a heavily mapped area.
Yeah, that makes sense. So just to speak a little bit about the regulatory stuff, do you have any thoughts about how that might play out? I mean, this is still pretty new stuff.
Yeah.
And are there people in Washington, D.C. poring over this right now and congressional aides writing legislation? Or
I don't think that's happening right now, but because I think it's still in its infancy stage.
Yeah.
So from our standpoint, a couple of things. One is we want to be in continuous dialogue with the regulators. We want to be part of the solution. We want to provide our learnings, so that will help make informed regulations. We would encourage that the regulations be at the federal level and not at the state level, because having a patchwork of 50 different regulations is just not feasible.
You could have a thing where you could only drive ride in your car to the state line.
And that's why it's really important that we would encourage that these safety regulations, however they're written, be written at the federal level. And then lastly, we would encourage the U.S. government to engage other governments, so you have harmonization of the safety guidelines, because there's a lot of benefits in that in terms of cost savings on a manufacturer side, which can then be transferred through to the customers.
Just as a final question, we've seen the big tech companies, Google and Apple, getting involved here with CarPlay and Android Auto, I believe it's called.
Android Auto.
Android Auto,
Right.
yeah.
Do you folks think that there will ever be a time when Sync integrates with those platforms in some way?
Our intent is to actually, enable for customers who would like to use Android Auto or Apple CarPlay to enable that, as well as provide capability on board with Sync and provide customers a choice. We think it's really important to be what we call device agnostic. We don't want to put customers in a position that they're having to make a decision about what brand of vehicle they're going to buy, their $30,000 vehicle purchase, based on what type of phone they happen to have. And so we work very closely with Google and with Apple, as well as developing our Sync system to provide them that flexibility.
Well, you guys, it's really been a pleasure learning here what you folks are working on, and wish you the best with that. And it'll be great to see you here again next year to see how things are progressing.
You bet.
So
Thanks for
a lot.
coming.
Okay, thanks. Okay then, thanks for joining us for What to Think, number 36, VentureBeat's Technology News Podcast. And for Mark Sullivan, myself, and Harrison Weber, we'll see you next week on the podcast. As always, you can find us at VentureBeat.com. And if you haven't subscribed to our podcast in iTunes yet, please do so. Just search for the What to Think on iTunes. See ya.